My wife let me be in charge of the Halloween costumes this year. So I'm going to show you how to make 4 awesome DIY characters from Return of the Jedi. And these are all pretty cheap to make if you've got a reasonably well-stocked garage.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
This Jedi Luke costume was probably the easiest, but making that lightsaber was a fun project.
All right. Whoops.
My wife's never even seen this movie, but she was a good sport.
All right, put your arms out. Okay, have your arms down, grab your gun. Yep.
Oh my god.
Point it somewhere. All right.
Of course, I went as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I couldn't think of a good, safe way to make the costume glow. So I'm going to show you how to make each of these costumes. And we'll start with Leia on one of Endor's moons. This costume is all about making that iconic helmet. So to start things off, have your wife buy one of these cheap hats, and then head over to Lowe's to pick up some foam. Trace a circle roughly the size of your wife's head. Heads aren't perfectly round, so try to account for that. Cut this circle out, and make sure you use a cutting board underneath this. Now check the fit. You want it to be a little bit loose because the hat's going to be under it. Actually, you might as well just have her put the hat on. You'll probably have to go back a few times and sand it out a little bit. Once you get it right, you're going to have to cut a few more of these. So just trace it out and repeat. Glue and stack the circles until you have the right thickness. You're eventually going to cut and sand these things down to the right shape. While I'm tracing and cutting, I'll cut a circle for the earmuff type things that stick out from the helmet. Basically just need 2 half circles. Whenever you have a piece of foam that's in its final shape, you can smear some glue around it. This will just make it stronger and stop it from flaking all over the place. It'll also probably hold the paint better. Cut this thing to its rough shape. Just keep chipping away at it a little at a time. Then you can sand it down smooth. Draw an outline for the brim of the hat. Then just keep going around for the rest of the shape of this helmet. This next part's going to be a little controversial. I'm using an old soldering iron as a cutting implement for this foam. If you decide to do it this way, there should be no kids around. You should be outside on a slightly windy day, and you should be wearing a mask. The fumes that come off of this are pretty much the same ones that were coming out of that train in East Palestine. Definitely not good for you. Here's the final shape to check the fit. There are a few more decorative design details that we'll draw on with a pencil before going back with the soldering iron. Again, seriously, no kids around. Now that we have the final shape, we can smear it with glue, and we'll let this dry overnight before we paint it. While we wait for that, let's look at this $5 poncho. We're going to hang it on this garage door track while we spray paint it. So make sure nobody opens the door while you're doing this. Now that the helmet foam is dry, let's start thinking about painting. There's a lot of detail here we're going to try to get right. First, I'll paint these ear covers. I actually drilled some holes in them also. I used the back of a screwdriver to make this shrapnel dent, and I cut that logo design into this masking tape. At some point, I spray painted this helmet green. Not sure why I didn't film that. I used the screwdriver to make various dents and scratches. Finally, I used some sandpaper to make the surface look scratched and distressed. The hat piece has sort of a tan horizontal stripe design on it, so I just used masking tape and spray painted it. Make sure your wife knows the plan for this hat. She might have been thinking that she was going to wear this in the wintertime, not realizing that you plan to destroy it. I'm super proud of the way this turned out. Like I said before, this helmet really makes the costume. I used the soccer ball again to hold the hat while I put some hot glue on it and attached this foam helmet. Boom. This thing looks awesome. Next, you'll need a utility belt made of duct tape and a blaster. Piece of cake. Okay, now let's get into this bonkers ATST costume. Find a template online and use some 4th grade math to scale it up. Trace a hole for your kid's head. Draw out the rough shape so you can fold it into a box. You're going to go through like 4 or 5 knife blades for this project, but it's worth it. These things really need to be sharp. You'll really start to notice when it's time to change the blade. Fold it up and use some high-quality tape to put it together. This tape I'm using is typically used in construction when someone's trying to protect a floor. Contractors will lay down this cardboard and tape it together with this stuff. It's also paintable, which is important. These are the armholes. Here are those eye flaps. I realized it might be hard to walk around carrying a bag of candy wearing this thing. So it was around this time I had the idea to have my son wear a backpack, which would be modified so that people could drop candy through a hole on the top of this thing. Anyway, this piece goes around his waist. It'll be tied in the front, and this is what the legs will be attached to. I cut the shapes for the leg struts and glued them all together with hot glue. Here's how this is sort of going to work. The legs will be attached to his waist and his shoes. I'll make it so we can take this thing off easily when he inevitably gets annoyed with it. So I'll trace out these shoes and make sort of a hybrid shoe cardboard footwear thing here. Man, this really is crazy. Now that these shoes are done, I will spray paint it and start thinking about how these legs are going to attach. Next, I painted all the other components and then started thinking about hinges for these legs. I'm going to use this cheap, lightweight poplar dowel. The hot glue will stick to it really well, and it's got a lot of surface area to make contact with the cardboard. I want these hinges to be really loose, so my son doesn't notice it as much when he's walking. It also needs a few extra degrees of freedom, because my son's legs aren't going to just move forward and back. I really need to get a new drill. Now it's time to really tie this costume together with some programmable sound effects. This is a soundboard typically used for greeting cards. It's just not quite loud enough. So I added this amplifier and a slightly larger speaker. With the sound coming through the gun tube, this should work perfectly. Everything will be fixed inside this gun module, which will be attached to the front of the walker with another hinge. This is a little crazy, and it added about $20 to the project. But come on. This is just some finishing touches. I'm gluing some fleece from an old sweatshirt to the holes. We don't want any paper cuts, especially on our neck. I probably went through about 15 or 20 sticks of hot glue. Here's an important consideration. These legs shouldn't be allowed to overextend, otherwise compression won't bend them back. They'll get hung up and your kid will trip, so I have to make some kind of a limiter. Here I'm cutting strips to use as laces to tie the waistband around. These will just be glued to the cardboard, but I'll glue some additional cardboard on the outside to sort of sandwich it in. I went through all this trouble getting these eye hooks to stick to the shoes, but as I make this video, I realized I could have just used that little circular tag on the back of the shoes itself. Dummy. I'll fasten the legs using this large bobby pin. In another video, I showed how I renovated this laundry room, so check that out when you have some time. I found this backpack in the garage, so I ran it through the wash. This will be our ATST's cargo hold. I cut out the liner that separates the backpack sections. We just want one big opening for the candy. It'll just come in through the top, through an opening we'll cut into the costume. I'll glue some cardboard around this to prop it open. Okay, let's figure out this lightsaber situation for the Jedi Luke costume. I basically just used that poplar dowel from the last costume and attached various rounded shapes in the right order to look like a lightsaber. Some more hindsight here as I make this video. I probably could have used old poker chips instead of cutting and making these things from scratch. Oh well. These things have to be painted black on the face and then silver on the outside. You should wait for this to dry overnight before you switch and do the other color, or even the other side. But I was getting pretty impatient, so I just went ahead and did it. I just clamped these all together so that I could spray the outside with the silver. These things are attached to that central dowel with crazy glue. Did you guys know that doctors use the same kind of glue to glue cuts together? Look it up. It's crazy. After attaching all these discs, I'll add one more toilet paper roll to finish the job. At the very end, I'm going to paint this entire thing with epoxy so that it makes a nice hard plastic shell around everything. Here's the final product. Not too shabby. Happy Halloween, everyone. And don't forget to vote.